Hey guys, I just wanted to do my review of The Flash, season 4, episode 15, Enter Flash Time, and oh my god, this was I really love this episode. I thought it was fantastic. So much better than last week, which just kind of felt like it. Well, I mean, I guess you can say it didn't move the it moved the plot forward somewhat, but it just kind of just like iffy. This one, it was just like I really felt there was some real tension and stakes here, especially with the situation for this week was that this terrorist named I think Veronica Dale. It was a group of terrorists who broke into Argus and set off a nuclear bomb. And Barry was moving so fast; he was moving at what Cisco coined as flash time, which is um, which is basically moving so fast that it's almost like everyone around him is standing still, kind of similar to I guess is presumably something he got from his power boost as a result of being trapped in the Speed Force for 6 months. And this is how this is what happened with between him and Iris during Trial of the Flash episode. So basically, it's something where it's and it was you can see Jesse had come back to that Earth 2 originally to talk with Harry, and she was supposed to be she was really sent an apology, and apparently this was revelation where it turns out that the death of Harry's wife affected him more than I guess the show and I guess that we were originally led to believe. It's apparently it has like a huge factor in his like overall personality and demeanor, and why it's like it would led to this like rift between Jesse and Harry, and why basically he she was like kicked off her I guess like the Quicksters as the unofficial title that Cisco referred them to, and why he was been on that Earth, and he just said it's like, oh, you kicked me off, like I had no home to go, I had just home to, and it's like, and Jesse's like, no, you could have come home anytime, you just chose to say to stop DeVoe, and you felt like you had the need to stop DeVoe. It was like you just didn't want to like talk about the death of his wife, and that's one reason she came to Earth. But then it ended up being a reason trying to help Barry, trying to stop the bomb, and especially having to go grab Jay Garrick from Earth 3, trying to stop the nuclear bomb because the Flash had gotten there in time. The police had subdued most of the terrorists, led by Veronica Dale, but she had already, but not Veronica Dale herself, who had already gotten the detonator to the nuke, and so he tried having different people move with him. The Flash move with him at Flash time, aside from Jesse and Jay. He had Cisco trying to breach it to Earth 15, but he was moving so, but his powers didn't work in Flash time, and people and because of the and he can only have people move with him at for so long before they got exhausted and moving at super speed. Even though we never, it's something. Although it's a little odd since we never really have seen that before, but well, I guess like well, I mean, like, well, actually, now that I think about it, maybe it's not such a stretch that people move with him at super speed who weren't speedsters for a prolonged period of time, but they eventually were like getting exhausted and like they had beads of sweat and they were sweating and so it's like he had to, so it's like first he tried using Cisco's powers, but he had to let him go and return to normal time. He tried talking to Killer Frost and getting them to free use her powers to freeze the explosion, but she wasn't able to do that because again of a similar situation. I guess her powers didn't work in Flash time, and she was getting exhausted. And something that was really touching was the fact that when Flash had to let her go, Killer Frost's last words before then were, "Don't let Katie die." Like she was legit. I mean, which means that granted, it's like anything that I mean, granted, naturally anything that happens to I mean, they're both I mean, they're both like same, two separate personas in one body. But I guess it's also the fact that Killer Frost doesn't completely resent her alter ego, and there are also different solutions where Barry tried talking to Harry about setting the nuclear bomb to the Speed Force, and Jay was completely against the idea because he said that setting the nuke into the Speed Force would destroy it and sever every speedster's connection to the Speed Force across past, present, future, and across the multiverse, and that was too big of a risk. And then they tried, it was like, oh, by throwing lightning at it, it would generate enough energy to stop the bomb. The problem is that because Jay was getting tired from running at super speed, and because of his age, he couldn't stay in flash time forever. So that plan failed. And then Jessie eventually started to get tired, and she was trying. And they had this moment where she was trying to talk to. She wished she could reach out to Harry and bring him into flash time and say how she was feeling, and say that okay, she understands the fact that it's like he has to open up and talk with him and talk about his own feelings about his wife's death to Jessie on his own time. She can't force him to open up about it. But then it gets to the point where it's like she gets exhausted and she gets out of flash time, and Barry's trying writing on this clear, I wouldn't say whiteboard, but it's like that clear glass, but it's kind of like a whiteboard, and he's running out of ideas. He's exhausted. I mean, he even brings Iris into flash time and says that I can't save us. It's like, he tries to get her, say his last words and say he's always been his lightning rod. She's always been his lightning rod, and that inspires Iris to realize that she remembers how they use like a cord spear to send it into that Team Flash has sent into the Speed Force in order to take Barry's place, in order to get him out of the Speed Force in the season premiere. So she realizes that, and she realizes that if Barry can't rely on Jessie and Jay to help generate the energy to negate the nuke, that she can create the same level of energy and kind of like a mini lightning storm level energy that the Speed Force generated during the whole lightning storm in the season 3 finale to negate the blast. And so it inspires Barry to run so fast into he goes back into the Speed Force, grabs the cord spear, and the energy chases him out of the Speed Force, and he's able to toss it towards the nuke and able to negate the explosion at the extent of exhausting his powers. And Jay even says that he even needs to get some rest, and that he's actually planning on, is after this whole event, that he's planning to go back to Earth 3 to not only retire but to train another Flash. And they ask about, is there another Flash on his Earth, and he says there will be once I'm done training her. And I was wondering, who they were. I was wondering if he wants Jessie to take over as defending Earth 3, and I guess because she took his place when when Jay was trapped in the Speed Force for a little bit. But then it kind of leaves the question of who's going to defend Central City on Earth 2. So maybe it's maybe it's Jesse, maybe it's somebody else. And even though Harry couldn't get the cerebral, and I guess they mentioned, Barry just decided, take a breather against this whole DeVoe thing, even though they suspect that he's the one who was pulling the strings behind this whole nuclear detonation, and maybe in that he needs to take a breather and spend some quality time with Iris, and maybe it'll just dawn on him and how he can get access to DeVoe's pocket dimension and stop him. And I guess the thing is that even though the cerebral inhibitor didn't work on DeVoe last week, he was able. Harry was able to modify the cerebral inhibitor to put on Jesse's forehead, and then use like a complementary earpiece to, and because I mean, clearly Harry is somebody who's like showing a lot of signs of somebody who's on the has like Asperger's syndrome and has problems expressing himself, which is why he has used the cerebral inhibitor to like project his thoughts of his wife to Jesse. And you know I guess it was just like a voiceover of I guess Harry's wife when I guess either Jesse was born or when they were playing with her as a toddler is not sure, but he said that even that in the I guess you can say like the mid credit scene, not like a mid credit scene, but like the scene where they show like the title card, and then it's like the last scene afterwards where it goes to credits. They Harry goes to CC Jitters with Caitlin and says that he was able to really clear the air with Jesse, and Caitlin mentions that she's so like neurotic about having the second persona inside of her that this episode was the first time when she remembered what what Killer Frost said and did, and then of course and then by surprise they're interrupted by Don Allen, presumably Don Allen. They haven't confirmed it, but most likely Don Allen, who like knocks over their coffee and is like cleaning up, and it's like, she does the usual rambling and kind of like she did with meeting when she first met Barry, and then when she met Ralph and Cisco. And she said she was supposed to meet somebody there, and she was waiting for them, and so it causes Harry and Caitlin to get up and leave, and it's like, hey, hopefully your meeting with your friends goes well. And then she looks, and then her last line is looking at Harry and Caitlin with kind of a serious look on her face, and she's like, "Don't worry, it did." So I don't know if I mentioned this in other videos. I know it feels like they're kind of dragging out this mystery of like what the I guess like what the extent of DeVoe's plan is, like what the Enlightenment is. We haven't gotten like any kind of hints as to what the Enlightenment is, and it feels like they're going to drag this out as long as probably like the mysteries of Zuma's Savitar, which is disappointing. But as far as like this one pertaining to this mystery girl who I think everybody suspects is Barry and Iris' daughter, this is a mystery and a tease that I can appreciate because I feels like it's building to something as opposed to DeVoe's like supposed enlightenment, which I feel like not even the writers, like at least at this point at the time that they produced this episode, had a clear idea of like what it was going to be and like what direction they're going to take it in. Maybe it's like building to something. I don't know. It just feels like we need like kind of more clues other than just like, okay, so he's basically, I mean, so far all he's done is just like kind of just body hopping just to try to, not succumb to his ALS. But other than that, it's like they kept dropping stuff about the Enlightenment since like, at least they mentioned in the mid-season finale, and we haven't heard much about it since then. So I don't know like where they're gonna go with that, but I'm hoping we get more clues sooner rather than later. I mean, next week's episode is going to be the anticipated one where Iris gets Barry's powers for an episode, and just from looking at the trailer, I don't know what people's fuss is about it, other than Iris haters are gonna hate on Iris, and it just looks like a fun episode, and I'm looking forward to it, and I hope the show like keeps up the momentum that it has, because that way it can actually this could be definitely. At first, like after last week's episode, the jury was out as to whether or not season 4 or season 3 was the worst season. If they keep the momentum like this towards the end, towards the season finale, I think this will definitely top the third season if nothing else. But anyway, guys, and also I gotta say, liked how there's an episode where, and the thing I'll give this season credit for is Barry facing off against more adversaries who aren't speedsters, who are able to push him to his limit, and he has to rely on his speed, but he doesn't have to face off against his adversaries. Don't have to be a speedster to keep him on his toes. But what do you guys think of this episode? Do you like having Jesse back? Jay Garrick, what are your thoughts on where the season is going to go? Leave your thoughts in the comments down below. If you like this episode, if you like this video, like, share, and subscribe, and I will talk to you guys soon. Take care.